What's up? Welcome to a new video. In this one, we're going to talk about the importance of sound design. Now, you've heard the saying probably many times that sound is half your film, and this is really true. For example, if this video would be very pixelated, noisy, maybe 4:3, but the sound would be fine, you could maybe forgive that. But if the visuals were okay and the sound would be horrible, then you probably wouldn't listen to that for very long. So let's switch back. Now let's take a look at our latest short from the can as an example for sound design. If you haven't watched it already, be sure to do that first by clicking up here, because this will contain spoilers. Now, sometimes you're adding sounds that weren't there in the first place, that you haven't recorded on set. This can, for example, be explosions, gunshots. This clip was from a different short film. And sometimes you even have to replace the original audio that you recorded on set. First, where can you get the sounds? I frequently use the Artlist sound effects library, but also bought many other packs over the years from, for example, Filmride, Pond5, and just recently Ocular Sounds. By the way, none of these have sponsored me, but you could do that, hit me up if you want to. But of course, you can also record your own sounds on set, in a studio, or at home. And here you can really use anything. Most often the weirdest things are used to create sounds that you later listen to in a movie. For example, breaking bones most often are not breaking bones, but some celery, just like this. Hurt. But anyways, let's go back to the pre-recorded sound libraries, because that's probably what most of you are going to use, because it's just way easier and cost efficient. First, let's look at a very simple example. In this case, I wanted to emphasize the door squeaking. Here's the original recording with the original sound. I'm also going to mute the music right here. The girl is opening the door and it's already very much squeaking. So that was all original, recorded on location, but I thought it was just missing that first impact when she first grabs the door and tries to open it and it's kind of stuck a little bit, which we intentionally did on set to kind of make it seem like it's really hard to open, but it didn't squeak right there. So I looked up squeaking door effects on Artlist, found this effect, put it in there, synced it to the scene, and that's our final result with some more squeaking. Now let's take a look at a scene that is a little bit more difficult. In this case, our water fight scene. It turned out pretty good because we had the camera in a big underwater housing case, so we had good footage in and under the water. However, since the A7S III was in this underwater housing case, we had this sound to work with. Now it's fine, we can use a little bit of it, but definitely not all of it. It's very high pitched. We had the same problem in Drowning Shadows, our short film that we shot in a pool with the same underwater housing case. And in this case, it wasn't as big of a problem because we mainly filmed underwater with it. But in this case, we definitely had to add some sounds to make the fight scene crisp and have more impact on it. So I looked up hundreds of water splashes, swimming sounds, branches, leaf sounds on Artlist sound effects, downloaded them all and matched them to the scene so that they're not just randomly placed, but also kind of a bit synchronized to what's happening in the scene. For example, when she throws her opponent in the water, this is the original sound. And this with the added sound effect synchronized to the scene. Or right here after the fight scene, when she looks for the can in the water, this is it without the sounds. And right here with sound effects, not only when she reaches into the water to grab the can, but also underwater, this kind of eerie underwater muffled sound effect. Also, her screams and grunts were sometimes added. Most of the time, of course, they were recorded on set because they are really hard to do after the shoot. Of course, you could re-record them, but trying to find a scream on Artlist that matches the voice sound of your actress when she speaks or screams in other scenes is kind of hard. But I managed to find one that I think sounds really similar. Now here she's screaming on set with her real voice. This is a scene where she makes a sound, but the sound is really bad because it's in the underwater housing again. I think it's pretty seamless. You could believe it's her if you don't know her. And here's one last example of where I added a sound, layered it on top of the original recording to make it more impactful. At the end of the water fight scene, we have her throwing the backpack into the water, which originally sounded like this. But I added a sound effect to make it more like this. Now, speaking of layering sounds is really important. You can, of course, just use a sound, drag it into your editing software, and use it just like this, and sometimes it works really good. But to have an even better result, you should always layer your sounds. Pick several sounds that you like, and this is sometimes really just trial and error. Layer them on top of each other, turn some of the effects on and off and listen to it several times. Put them together and layer them on top of each other to really create your own sounds and make them unique. And also, this is of course not just good to create your own sounds and make them more unique, but also to make the mix stand out more, make it fuller, make it broader, because maybe you have a sound that you really like, but it's very deep and you don't have any impact in the highs, so you take another sound that's maybe a little bit higher, or the other way around, or something that is more like in the midtones and you want to have some more deep impact, then you maybe get a hit that is a bit bassier to fill it out down below there, if that makes sense. And the last tip I have for you is don't only look in the scene, in your frame, what you filmed, what could make a sound, but also feel like you're in the scene and what else could be around you that makes a sound. That sounds a bit philosophical, but I'm talking about not just the obvious things like having a punch, or things that are in the scene but very often get overlooked but shouldn't be overlooked because they still are in the scene, like for example in a fight scene, the closed wrestling, or in this case when a small fly flew across the scene. It didn't make any sounds, at least in my microphone, but it sparked the idea of just putting in a mosquito fly sound effect to just add a bit more to the scene, and maybe someone who wouldn't have seen the fly now sees it because he listened to it, or he didn't even see it but just heard it, which made him more engaged with the scene. But also things that are not in the scene but could be around the scene, like for example in our Christmas horror short film from last year, in our establishing shot we can see a house at night, and I did not only put in the cricket sounds but maybe also a dog barking in the distance. Now those were some ideas and thoughts on the topic of the importance of sound design. I really hope you enjoyed it and you got something out of the video. If you did, please be sure to hit the like button, and also consider subscribing right here for more videos on the topic of filmmaking, just like this one. You can find an editing breakdown I did a while back, which also includes some sound design right here, and the last video right here, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Goodbye.